Hi. In the previous episode, I gave you a brief overview of WhisperGate campaign, explaining that there were two streams. One stream started with stage 1. It's a Viper that is written to MBR, and stage 2 is the Trojan downloader that connects to Discord server to download .NET DLL, and which is used to run in the memory another Trojans, which drops advanced run, install util, and VBS file. And in this video, I want to start with the basic static analysis. So as I explained previously, we'll first analyze stage 2, which is a Trojan downloader. So the easiest thing you can do is just go to the properties of the file to figure out, okay, the information of the file. So for example, in detail section. This is information that can be found in version info structure that is typically added to resource section. And we can see that some of the strings are written in Russian. This is explained by the fact that this version infrastructure was copied from the Russian version of Explorer in Russian operating system Windows. And this is Explorer in Russian, then again, operating system Microsoft, all rights reserved, and original name is Tbopbh.jpg. This is how it was originally named and supposedly placed on the target machine. Then another interesting fact that there is a digital signature. If we go to details and view certificate, the Windows tells that digital signature doesn't verify the file. Supposedly it was also copied from the Russian version of Explorer and used just to bypass, as a defensive agent technique, to bypass antivirus protection. Because I know that some antiviruses, they are not really checking the validity of the digital signature, but only the presence of it in the file. And if the file was changed, then the hash of the file differs from the hash provided in the digital signature. And of course, the attackers, they had no Microsoft keys to sign a new certificate, so it was not compromised. Then we can use another tools. If you have Flare VM tools, then you can go to utilities folder, and there is Detect Easy, popular static analysis tool. The only thing that I don't like is that it doesn't support drag and drop, and that's why you might need to provide the path to the file and load it in such way. And it tells that it's a .NET application and compiled using Microsoft linker. So probably it was developed in Microsoft Visual Studio. Then another tool that with a similar functionality is PID. Also very, very simple tool, but it supports drag and drop. And as you can see, it provides the same information about the platform used to build this application and programming language, C# and Microsoft Visual Studio. Okay, then there is PView. PView shows you the internal structures of P file. And it can be helpful, for example, to identify the type of the application before we start, for example, disassembling, decompiling it, or debugging. Of course, now we know that it's C# application, it's .NET, so we need to use .NET decompiler to get it, and we'll use dnspy later for decompiling and debugging this application. But we need also know for which platform it was compiled. So you can see that the architecture is 32-bit machine, and it's executable, which means that it's exe file, it's not DLL. And also it's interesting that timed and stamped seems to be original, like it was not spoofed by the attacker, which is a typical action performed by the criminals when they create malware. And it tells that this file was compiled on 10th of January. And it seems to be true because the attack was executed on 13th of January. So it was compiled just 3 days before the attack, which seems to be real data. So that's it. Also, I recommend calculating the hash. For example, SHA1. And then use this hash to check if there is any information on online multiscanner called VirusTotal. Probably you've heard about that and use it. Here you can see the verdicts, and you can find out, for example, Microsoft has a verdict DOS Win32 WhisperGate.h. H is kind of like a variant. WhisperGate is the name of the family or campaign. Win32, it's a platform. We already figured out that it's 32-bit application. And DOS, denial of service, which means Viper. I think they classified Vipers as a denial of service tool, which means if file corruptor or MBR Viper wipes the data on physical drive, then the computer, the machine won't be operable. Also, it provides information about the file hashes, information about submission. So the first submission was on January 16, just 2 days later after the attack, and as well as file version 4 extracted from the corresponding structure, which is usually added to the resource section. Very useful feature is information about the behavior, and there are like, I believe, 12 sandboxes that are connected to this file, and you can see the extracted information about the tactics and techniques used by the attackers. By the way, if you go to MyTreAttack website, you will see same information about the techniques. So this is a T, stands for technique, and this is the ID, this identifier, actual ordinal number of the technique. And this is this description of the technique, like a disk wipe, disk content wipe, and this explains how these techniques applied. Okay, let's go back to VirusTotal, and what we can see here is also very useful because it one of the sandbox managed to intercept the request to Discord. So somewhere inside of the Trojan downloader, and we'll try to find out the place, there is a URL that is used to download stage 3, which is, as I told earlier, it's a .NET DLL, but now it's seems to be as a JPEG. And if we go to our files, so there is a downloaded JPEG file. So it's not available on Discord anymore, of course, but you can find this file available from online sandboxes or VirusTotal. And if we open this file in hex editor, then you see that it starts from zeros, which is quite strange. So usually files, they do not start. Usually we have a magic bytes coming first. But if you go down, you will be able to recognize DOS and P header. And the trick is that the bytes were reversed. So the first bytes come last and the last bytes come first. And in order to decode, you just need to put the bytes in the reverse order. So that's what this Trojan downloader is going to do when it downloads this DLL from Discord. we'll debug this Trojan and we'll see how it works. Then another useful service is Up and Run. This is my favorite sandbox online. So you can find the report among public tasks. So we provide a hash, and here we have a lot of reports. You can select any report. So now it's loaded. What we can see, we don't see any HTTP request, any network activity, but we see that it starts PowerShell command, and the arguments are encoded. So it's base 64 encoding. And by the way, if we copy this string and open, let's say it's going to be CyberChef, very useful tool. There is a demo, live demo of the deployed CyberChef. And can be useful tool for like basic decoding, deobfuscation. And let's pass our base 64 encoded string. Then we use from base 64 transformer. And what we can see, it's a wide character formatted string, which is start sleep and the parameter -S10, which stands for 10 seconds. So what does it mean? These techniques can be used to bypass sandbox analysis because when the malware is executed inside of any sandbox, the sandbox usually tracks if there is any activity. If there are no, then it just terminates analysis session. And when application sleeps for 10 seconds, it means that this application doesn't perform any actions, and sandbox thinks, okay, analysis is over. There is no sense to run the VM because it's computing resources, and it, App any run, for example, or any sandbox vendor have to pay for these computing resources. So this is quite interesting technique, and as we can see here, on app any run, it worked. So we don't see any request, and the session was terminated after it started PowerShell. So in this episode, we figured out that Trojan download, it's a .NET application. It's designed for 32-bit platform, and we'll need to use 32-bit debugger to work with this Trojan later. We also figure out that it uses some analysis, anti-analysis techniques with using PowerShell command with encoded string base 64 string, which encodes actually start sleep command. And we also figure out that on VirusTotal that there is a connection to Discord server, and it will be also possible to discover this URL inside of the code, and we'll do that in our next episode.